Hi, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are today. This is Sanjeev Jain, your host today, and I'm representing Enabling World. It's a boutique HR consulting firm which is hosting the session today. And first thing first, let me first welcome three experts, and I personally feel we are honored to have three great experts with variety, different experiences and different backgrounds to contribute to this difficult topic. It's not an easy topic to deal with, and we have got three, experts. So first, let me welcome Dr. Balaji. Dr. Balaji is based at Mumbai currently, and he's a Group Chief Medical Officer at Tata Powers. Tata Powers and Tata Group is one of the largest industrial house in the country and very, very prestigious. And I had a short stint with Dr. Balaji in IBM when he was taking care of employee well-being, and I was leading HR for one of the business unit. So Dr. Balaji has influenced. Wow. I mean, I was checking the number. Is it correct? 150,000 employees he has influenced through his career, and maybe more, and the count is going on through his innovative, health strategies at the workplace. And he is not only worked in India, but he has helped, setting up the medical center, corporate medical centers across the globe. And Dr. Balaji, let me hear from you. Uh, what's your passion with employee well-being? And I think you have authored a book as well, right? Would you like to
Yeah,
talk about it?
yeah, that's right, Sanjeev. Thank you. I think as a passion, I would want to see a fuller life or a holistic life for every employee. I mean, it might take time. It might happen today, tomorrow, or down the lane. But that is the ultimate passion. Yeah, regarding the book, yes, the book is about WOSHW, WASH W. That is Workplace Occupational Safety, Health, and Wellness, where we have tried to cover the multiple aspects of workplace statutory requirements in terms of occupational health and safety and wellness aspects as well. That's it, Sanjay.
Excellent. So we look forward to hear your views during this session, Dr. Balaji. And
Thank
then
you.
let me welcome Dr. Aditi. Dr. Aditi has multiple talents in one person. She is an expert in DEI. That's a passion besides well-being. She is facing a little bit of connectivity issue, so she may be on and off. But let me use this time to introduce her. So she is very. I mean, she is masters in psychology from University of Louisiana, and she's a PhD. Has done her doctorate. She's a doctor, but not a medical doctor. She's a PhD in from University of Houston in industrial and organizational psychology. So we have in Dr. Aditi a person who's academician. She has done a lot of work, and she has written international papers, research papers which have been published in international, journals. So Dr. Aditi, while you are coming, going and back. So I just introduced you a basic, but I want to check with you, what's your passion with, employee well-being and wellness? I know you're doing a lot of work, and she's running an organization called Act for Work for many, many years now. And she's very passionate about, employee well-being and also about DEI, and both are so well connected actually. So what's your passion with employee well-being, Dr. Aditi?
I believe that through my graduate work, I started getting interested in the idea of stress and burnout at work. And that's where it all started in terms of being relatable um, in watching all my friends here in India struggling with, their long working hours in the IT field. Or I remember having a friend telling me, you're so lucky. You didn't study as much as we did. You don't work as hard as we do, and you're in the same place. And so it got me really thinking about what is this, right? What drives people? What makes them feel good? What makes them more productive? Of
Mm,
course, I use myself as my own lab rat, if you will,
mhm,
experimenting with with different ways of working, different ways of being, including spirituality and science and, all sorts of things. For the most part, I think I inherently believe that everyone has amazing potential. With the right support, we can really take this potential to the next level. We have the youngest workforce in the world. We have some incredibly talented people. We have a large population. So, with the right support, I think we can really do great things.
Perfect. So you are based, I heard, I mean, when I was going through your profile, you are in Berlin and Bangalore. So where do you spend most of your time? Is it Bangalore or Berlin?
Currently, I'm in Bangalore.
Okay. Okay, that must be a unique challenge managing two locations. But thank you so much for joining in, and we really look forward to hear your thoughts, Dr. Aditi. And so thanks. And last but not least, let me welcome Caesar Cameo. So he is joining us from England. And Caesar, when I was going through his profile, very unique. And Caesar, we are so touched that you have more India in you than any of us. You are so much, you imbibed the culture and the ancient history and wisdom from India. So we are truly, truly impressed. So he is a founder for a Dharma Academy for workplace well-being. That's what he runs as an organization, and he merges both ancient wisdom and the modern science to improve the to wellness, workplace wellness in particular. That's what his focus is. So let me ask you straight, Caesar, what's your passion with employee wellness and the workplace wellness? Go ahead.
Uh, Thank you, Sanjeev. So when I look at the data, it's very concerning. Before starting in the workplace well-being sector, I worked in IT for about 12 years, primarily working for Microsoft and for Motorola, and
Mhm.
and then so when I think of issues, I look at the data first, right? And the data says that, well, according to the World Health Organization, 1 out of 4 people will actually experience mental illness in their lives. 1 out of 4, and uh, and 87% of people of workers around the world are disengaged at work. And if we are familiar with the with a burnout spectrum, from engagement to burnout, the fact that 87% of workers around the world are disengaged, so they are literally on the verge of burning out, that's very concerning to me. So I, said to myself, I want to be part of this global trend to try to, revert this issue. And I've always thought that companies sometimes take the wrong approach. Companies like to fix the person instead of fixing the actual issues that are triggering the unnecessary stress and unnecessary anxiety in business. So rather than focusing on the individual primarily in a Dharma Center for Workplace Wellbeing and through the Dharma Academy for Workplace Wellbeing, we like to help businesses actually focus on the issues that are creating the unnecessary stress and anxiety. So that's why we focus on helping businesses either comply with their employer's legal duty of care, if that's the only thing that they're really interested in. But if they're a bit more ambitious, then we can help them achieve national standards of workplace well-being. Or if they're even more ambitious, we can help them achieve international standards of workplace well-being. Right? In this particular case, ISO 45003, which is the new workplace well-being global workplace well-being standard. And we truly believe, and I truly believe myself, that if we actually help to create an environment, that's conducive for employees to thrive, then that's when employees will actually start improving their cognitive well-being, which is a topic that we will address today, their cognitive wellness, and then we will improve the life and work experience of workers around the world. So my approach primarily is organizational, helping organizations take a more strategic, comprehensive, and systematic approach to workplace well-being first, and then, of course, helping the individual as well. But I believe that the key to improving well-being in the world has to do primarily with making sure that organizations are taking a comprehensive, strategic, and systematic approach to workplace well-being, and that's what we're about.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. And let me not forget to thank Inspired Leadership and Angela my friend who supported this particular episode of our panel discussion and podcast. So thank you, Angela, for being a great support here. Thank you, Caesar. So with that, I think let's begin. I'm very truly inspired with the mission that you have, all three of you, in terms of improving the lives of employees. So let me give that's my duty to introduce Enabling World in a minute. Enabling World is something that we started about 12 years back. It's a boutique, small HR consulting firm, and we are doing many things, being even small. So we are focused on HR consulting, leadership, talent development, a DEI, and we employee well-being. Employee well-being is towards the end, but that's the strongest pillar that we have. That we do a lot of work with multiple clients, MNCs, Indian clients, on employee well-being. And when we work in this area, it is so satisfying. And that's like all three of you are on a mission. When you do, even if you change one life, right? If you make one small improvement in someone's life, right, it's very, very satisfying. So that's important pillar for us. And so with that, let's get into this session state. uh, so first of all, I think I have some questions to the experts that I received from people when they were registering for the panel. And then some questions we have, from our side. We'll keep it very interactive, right? Feel free to jump in if you have a point of view. And team on the call, all the audience, let it be very interactive. If you have any question or a comment, please use chat primarily, and we'll make sure that your comment and questions are picked up. And this is live on LinkedIn as well. So there'll be some colleagues on LinkedIn live. Someone from our team will watch those questions and bring it up here. So we'll not leave them behind. So with that, so do we have your permission, Aditi, Caesar, and Balaji, to begin
Absolutely.
formally? Let's dive into it. Perfect. So first thing first, and Dr. Aditi, with your academic background, I will start with you, right? So first of all, can you help? When we started working on this particular podcast, Sushil and me were discussing. I said, what should be the topic that we should pick up this time? We were approaching World Mental Health Day, that is celebrated on 10th of October every year. And the theme this year, incidentally, is mental health at work. That's the theme. So we thought, let's pick it up. And it is so important because 60% of the global, population is at work somewhere, directly, indirectly, right? And workplace, in my experience, is both a remedy sometimes and a cause for mental health issues, isn't it? When you are feeling alone, but you go to work, meet wonderful colleagues, and you have success, it really helps you boost your morale, feel positive, etc. But if the environment is toxic, right, you have, as you're mentioning, fatigue and burnout issues like that, it can cause mental issues. It's both a remedy and a cause sometimes. That's interesting. So we need to get it right. We need to get it right. And then that was one reason we picked it up. Secondly, recently, especially in the Indian press, was flooded with a lot of reports of unfortunate events where someone took life just because of the work pressure, like a toxic work culture. We don't know the details, but on face of it, it's a wake up call. It must be happening every day here and there, but it was highlighted in media. So it's a wake up call for all of us. Something is happening somewhere, which may be going unnoticed, isn't it? So it's a time for us to reflect on, see what we can do in terms of improving the workplace culture to help improve the employees' mental well-being. And the third reason was that most of us, when we work, our cognitive skills are important for performance directly, right? And when I was studying about it, I felt we are not talking enough about cognitive wellness. We are not talking enough about it. I personally felt so. So we thought, let's bring some unique perspective from experts, three experts that we have, on how can we improve or decode the cognitive employees, cognitive wellness at the workplace. How does it happen? How does it impact the workplace? What can we do about it? And I want to talk more about solution and the your wisdom in terms of what has worked for you, what your guidance is versus the problem. We will understand the problem, but we want to spend more time on what has worked, what can we do as HR fraternity, as wellness experts, as leaders, etc. Right? So that's the context why we thought this topic would be interested. So first thing, Dr. Aditi, from you, can you help us understand in very simple terms what is cognitive wellness? It's a very basic question, but I want to start with that because I can bet if we ask 37 people on the call, what is cognitive wellness? We may get at least 40 different answers, right? So I want to get it right so that we are on the same page. And Caesar and Balaji, you're free to, jump in and add to what is cognitive wellness at the workplace. Go
Right.
ahead.
So let me begin by just explaining what we mean by cognitive, right? So your brain has certain functions: memory, learning, perception,
Mhm,
recall, right? Being able to make decisions, right? All of these things are aspects of perception. So when you're
mhm,
talking, I mean, of cognition, sorry, right? So when you say what is cognitive well-being, it's simply, very, very simply put, it's your ability to focus, it's your ability to set goals, it's your ability to be consistent, to meet those goals, it's your ability to make complex decisions, to think on your feet. All of these things are cognitive activities. Learning something new, these are cognitive activities. When we talk about cognitive health, we are talking about the brain functions as well as the ability to use and apply, right? You acquire knowledge, to apply that knowledge, to process that knowledge. That's what we mean in general when we are talking about cognitive health.
mhm. Caesar, Balaji, want to add anything to what very crisp, definition or understanding Dr. Aditi has given? So, you want to add to that anything?
Yeah, sure. So I would just like to give an example. I think Aditi has covered all the points of cognitive function, but just to explain with an example. For example, if a person is a musician or if someone is playing piano, so the person has to recall all the things, the tune, then there should be a psychomotor coordination. The brain must tell the fingers which are the keys to be pressed in the piano. Then the person must be able to hear what she or he is actually playing and must be able to enjoy it. And also, the person must have the correct speed and the correct rhythm with which the piano must be played. Else, it would be a noise and not a musical instrument. So that typically describes what Aditya had mentioned, all the things. It could be memory, recall, learning, reasoning, thinking. In fact, the word cognitive, if you go by the history, it all began. I mean, there are two or three histories that you can look up that's available on the open domain. One such history is that it's actually derived from a word called cognition, which means to think. So to think and to reason and to think are the two main functions, which encompasses all the functions of the brain, and thereby collectively it is called cognitive function. Or in simple words, if I need to know what I am or how happy I am on the whole, that is an indication of my cognitive function. It is the overall feeling of happiness as a result of coordination of all the brain functions put together. And in a few circumstances, especially in the medical world where I come from, it is more often intermixed with another terminology called brain health. Brain
Mhm.
health and cognitive functions are interrelated or they're interchanged, I would say. The words are interchanged. I would say there's a 90% overlap between the two, although there's a small 10% variation. So that to me is what is cognitive health.
Wow. Thank you. And Caesar, is there anything that you want to add to what Balaji and Aditya said?
Just perhaps a couple things. When I think of cognitive well-being, I think of it as a state in which one feels clear, focused, and feels that his or her mind is actually sharp. And I think of there are three elements to cognitive well-being from my perspective. First is the internal environment. Again, do I feel clear? Do I feel focused? Do I feel that my mind is sharp? Then the other element is the processing capability that Aditi was talking about. How's my ability to think, to learn, to remember, to reason, to adapt, to make decisions. And then there's a third element, which is the outcome. What is the quality of my behavior? What's the quality of my decision making? So again, when I think of cognitive well-being as a state, is the internal environment, which we will talk about later on, I would assume, our processing capability, and then what's the outcome of having the right internal environment, of having that a very sharp processing capability as well. So that's how I view it myself.
Wow, very, very clear. Thank you very much. So I think that makes it very clear, and I think we are on the common ground, at least in understanding what is cognitive wellness. Now, Dr. Balaji, if I ask you, I mean, how is it connected to mental well-being? Now, we use these terms interchangeably sometimes for lack of clarity within ourselves. And so I think, can you help us? How is it connected to mental well-being or mental health?
Yeah, that's a great point, Sanjeev. You mentioned it right. It is used interchangeably for lack of clarity many a times, or sometimes it could also be interchanged because one is an extension of the other. So, continuing with the same example that I gave earlier, suppose somebody is a good player, a musician, and suddenly she or he becomes paralyzed, and they lose the function of playing or the function of singing. They would get into subsequent actions. Subsequent actions meaning depression, anxiety, frustration, sorrow, which are all a part of emotional or mental health well-being. So it can act both ways. Impaired cognitive function can lead to a mental health issue, and vice versa as well. If somebody has a mental health issue, she or he may not be able to do the cognitive functions effectively. If somebody has got a serious issue with the emotions, say for example, one of the best players of football or cricket in the world may not be able to perform on that particular day with the same intensity as they would have done on any other day at their best, only because they were passing through some depression on that particular day, or they were passing through some extraordinary anxiety on that particular day. So it is where each one can be an outcome of the other. The cognitive imbalance can be an outcome of emotional imbalance, and vice versa. The mental or the emotional imbalance, I prefer to use the word emotional health rather than mental health to avoid any stigma associated with mental, but nonetheless, each one can be a cofactor or it could be a follow-up of the other. So that way, I think that is the physiological way of explaining the difference between cognitive function and mental health. And there's also a biological way of explaining this. So in a cognitive function, there is some amount of trauma or some amount of damage. The damage could be to the neurons in the brain, it could be to the cells, it could be to the neurotransmitter chemicals, various chemicals released in the brain. All these could cause an impaired cognitive function. And in mental health, in addition to this damage, there is something beyond the physical health, beyond this neurotransmitters and neurons and glions, which is in the mind, which can be an outcome of the neurotransmitter imbalance. So, a mental health can, in most of the cases, is a further extension of a cognitive health. So that's my take on this.
All right. Thank you. So, Caesar, coming to you. I mean, what I hear from you, cognitive wellness is so directly related to an employee's performance, isn't it? Because most of the work that we're doing, and increasingly we are into knowledge industry, service industries, increasingly worldwide, that sector is going up. And your ability to think, memorize, receive receive things from visual or audio, process it, take decisions. These are all cognitive abilities, right? It is so much directly related to the performance of the employee and the organizational performance. Why is it that we don't talk about it so much? And am I correct in my understanding that we don't hear so much about cognitive wellness at the workplace? I mean, so why do we miss this if it is so directly related to the organizational performance and employee performance? Why do you think we missed it?
Yeah, so I actually want to go back to Dr. Balaji's point about cognitive well-being being an extension of mental well-being, right?
Mhm.
And if we want to improve cognitive well-being, we need to address mental well-being first. Because if we address mental well-being, the way that I define it, or the way that the way that I define it myself is, again, it's a state. It's a state of emotional, psychological, and social balance, right? And if we are able
Mm.
to achieve that balance, then we're going to be able to cope with life's challenges much better. We're going to be able to build healthy relationships. We're going to be able to make meaningful contributions to our community as well. And if we enjoy mental well-being, then obviously we're going to be more resilient, more self-aware. We're going to be able to emotionally regulate in a much better way, and we're going to be able to have a clear sense of purpose. So if we address mental well-being, then that will have a knock-on effect immediately to our cognitive well-being as well. And why is it that we haven't paid attention to it? Primarily because it's something that's been kind of stigmatized, and in certain circles it's still stigmatized. People don't usually feel the freedom or the psychological safety to come forward, to say that they might not be experienced, that their mental well-being is actually suffering, because they might be perceived as weak, they must be perceived as perhaps incompetent or not good enough to be able to
Mhm.
perform, the respective duties. So that lack of psychological safety, to be able to that enables us to really express, that we might feel challenged, that our mental well-being might feel challenged, has led to these issues not being addressed. And then, of course, if you're not addressing mental well-being, this will have this will have a direct impact in cognitive well-being as well, right? So,
Yeah.
and hopefully, but again, I don't want to sound like a cynic. I mean, I think that the world is moving in the right direction. That we are
Mm.
actually starting to pay more attention to mental well-being, but there's a long, long, long way to go still.
I mean, you touched, thank you, Caesar. You touched on a very important point of stigma around this, right? And whenever we do work with a lot of clients and organizations in our own corporate life, I think stigma is one major roadblock in terms of, people coming forward with their issues, even reaching out to EAP services, right? I mean, the well-being services, the usage is pathetic, right? And because of the stigma, people don't want to go, and there's a stigma around in the team, that the way team welcomes them. So that's one thing, if we can address very well, I think we'll do a big job. So Dr. Aditi, asking you, can you tell us, related to cognitive well-being, what are some common myths or stereotypes that we should be aware of, right? Once we are aware, then possibly we can do something around this. Can you enlighten us on this?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that we only have to worry about our cognitive health as we age, because,
Mm.
age tends to result in some level of cognitive decline. Um, and I would argue that's not true. Obviously not, right? If you look at, I think there are two ways of looking at this. One is to look at um, cognitive dysfunction, and the other is to look at cognitive well-being. So I think typically people are focused on, just as in mental health, which is why there's a stigma, is people tend to look at mental ill health and not as mental well-being. Same way, people looking at you know cognitive ill health, and this is something that scholars in the neuroscience community also accept, that so far a lot of research has been focused on ill health, not necessarily on good health. So, so we tend to associate, old age and cognitive decline, right? Memory loss, dementia, this and that. Um, Another myth around it is, uh, I think there are a lot of, uh, companies that sell sort of brain hacks and brain training apps and whatnot, which are partially helpful. But cognitive health is very closely related to so many other factors, like physical movement, right? What things that increase neuroplasticity. That means your neurons are,
Mm.
uh, being used. New neurons are being built, right? You're expanding your wiring, to put it very simply.
Yeah.
So things like physical movement, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about creative endeavors. We don't talk about learning a new skill. If you look at someone, say, in their 40s and say, how about you learn to play the guitar, right? They're going to look at you like, please, I don't want my neighbors to run away. That sort of. So we have this perception of, um, you can't do this or you can't do that around uh, cognitive um, well-being. So so the second myth is that you can do some sort of brain hacking and it's all going to be fine. You can improve your focus, you can improve your memory, but it is a process. Your
Mhm.
nutrition, your sleep, your movement, physical exercise, your ability to have social connections, community, all of these things are feeding into your cognitive well-being, your creativity, and so on.
Is it
That's the
lesser
second.
known? Dr. Aditi, just let me ask you, I'm curious, you are in this field, you're supporting so many global executives, you're coaching them on wellness, on diversity, etc. Do you think whatever you said, the factors that impact your cognitive abilities, is it well understood by people in general, or there's a huge lack of awareness around this? What's your
I
impression?
would say there's a huge lack of awareness. I think leaders particularly focus on the physical aspects, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just go play some sport, right? So you might have a gym in your organization because that helps, right? Go just be fit, yeah, everything will be fine. Go run for some time, go do this, go lift some weights, and you'll be fine. So I think the part that's missing is the interconnectedness of all of these things. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think cognitive wellness can be looked at in isolation, and neither can you look at building your cognitive health with a single remedy. They're all interconnected. And
Wow.
this is something that's missing.
So it's
And I think the
complex.
second thing, it is very complex. The other thing they don't realize is that oftentimes they ask for, what is the ROI on well-being work? And I have to explain to them that you are hiring people for their cognitive abilities. You're making them sit in an office and help you build your business. So you're paying for their cognitive assets, and not helping them boost that is an enterprise risk.
Exactly. That's why I was thinking, if it is so directly impacted, related to organizational performance, why do we miss it? I mean, it is the first thing that we should be focusing on: employee well-being, that improve their mental well-being or cognitive well-being, because it is directly related to the performance and organizational performance. So this is becoming much, much more clear to me. So let me take a couple of questions from the team here. So, and my request to the experts, when you're not talking, in case you see a comment, you have a point of view, don't hesitate, right? Directly, keep on chatting, because we may not have enough time in the session. But let me pick up one. So this is from Shailesh Nangre. Says, does attention span have any role in cognitive wellness? So who wants to pick it up? Anyone of, I
Sure.
know all. Yeah, Dr. Balaji, why don't you answer
Yeah,
that?
definitely. Attention span has a significant impact on cognitive function. And one of the things that, I mean, one of the ways we could explain is that if somebody has got a low attention span, then the amount of memory that is processed into the brain is also much lesser within a short period of time. So because of this, the recall would also be difficult. The recall of memory
Mm.
would be tougher. As a result, it would have a direct impact on cognitive function. That is one way of explaining. There are a few other ways. The root cause for low attention span could also impact cognitive health. For example, if somebody has a low attention span because of a pre-existing disorder or illness or any other function like autism or any whatever it might be, that
Mm.
would in the long run impact even cognitive health as well, cognitive functions as well. That is another way of looking at. And the most common way of looking at the link between attention span and cognitive is lack of sleep. So lack of sleep is a common factor, or insufficient sleep, or I would say sometimes people continuously tend to work for 48 hours, 72 hours, especially in the medical profession or a few other associated professions like paramedics, nurses, doctors. So when there is this huge workload for more than 48 hours at a stretch with very limited breaks, the lack of sleep can be one master reason for both the decreased attention span as well as declining cognitive function. So these are some of the 2 or 3 ways for the links between attention span and cognitive function.
And we take a lot of pride sometimes, Balaji, or night out. I had 2 night outs back to back kind of thing. Sometimes, it is celebrated. I mean, the only worry that I have is many a times in the corporate, it is, rewarded that, oh, it's such a great employee, right? I mean, he worked the whole night kind of thing, he or she, right? And we reward those behaviors, and I think that's a wrong trend. So that's a caution. I mean, what I'm hearing from you is that's a caution that as leaders, as HR, one, we should try not to be in that situation. And I mean, we should not promote this and make it a heroic deed, oh, night outs back to back kind of thing. But if there's an emergency once a while, that's fine, all of us may jump into it and do it, but not a good thing to be done on a regular basis, isn't it?
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely, absolutely. It is not at all encouraged to have night outs night after night. You're bang on. I think that's not a thing to be celebrated. That's a thing to be cautious about.
All right. So,
And
Caesar, sorry,
yes,
go ahead.
so I just wanted to add, in addition to what Dr. Balaji was saying about the importance of sleep and the importance of regular exercise and and taking breaks as well, is something that I was taught in India 25 years ago. The practice of mindfulness and meditation. In order to improve our attention span. All of
Mhm.
Regardless of the meditation technique that you employ, most of the meditation techniques, meditation is defined as just bringing our awareness to the present moment, right? So whether we're using a mantra-based technique or breath awareness technique, visualizations, whatever that might be, we're forcing our mind to come back to the present moment through these practices. So a regular meditation practice will actually help to improve our attention span dramatically, right? And then, of course, simple tips just as making sure that the environment in which you're working has minimal distractions, making sure that you turn off all of the non-critical notifications from your phones, so that you don't get distracted by updates from social media and stuff. And most importantly, and something that astronauts actually do when they're up in space, is single tasking. Single tasking is the best way, or among other things, to improve your attention span. So just doing one thing at a time, right? And I'm pretty sure that most of the people that are listening to us, I would say that 99% actually engage in multitasking, which is the number one concentration killer, is the number one attention span killer. And actually, multitasking can even reduce the certain areas of the brain that actually are involved in cognitive function and emotional regulation as well. Now we've seen this, in high definition functional MRI images now. So just making those adjustments again in sleep, exercise, taking breaks, practicing meditation on a regular basis, minimizing distractions, and single tasking, it will do wonders to improve our attention span and all the other related, cognitive functions as well.
That's a great advice because, I mean, again, I'm saying from what I hear, multitasking sometimes is, rewarded. Oh, person can do many things at a time kind of thing. And we consciously, unconsciously celebrate that. Oh, person can do so many things at a time, right? Is a great talent kind of thing. But I think what you're saying is that if we practice and promote a single tasking uh, in the organs, the workplace, that's going to do, huge benefit to one's own cognitive wellness and organizational performance as well, right? That's what you're saying. I think I'm taking a note of that because there's so many things we got it wrong actually over the period, and I think it's time that we must correct those, right? So there was a question from Dr. Aditi. This is to you, if I can ask. There was a question from Priyanka here, and I was anyway supposed to ask that. I said, let me pick it up. And Dr. Balaji mentioned about the attention span. Sometimes there are neurodivergent conditions that any person would have that may lead to attention span issues, etc. The cognitive wellness is directly related to the neurodivergent condition of a person, isn't it? So, and when we talk about employee based people, we may not know, but there may be so many, people who have neurodivergent condition, but they haven't opened up, right? They may not be knowing itself. First of all, they're not diagnosed properly. They may not be knowing. Even if they know, they're masking themselves, and masking can be exhausting, right? I mean, it can be very stressful. Can you give a very specific advice on what are unique challenges of neurodivergent talent as far as cognitive well-being is concerned, and what should we do as an organization to take care of that? And it's a very sensitive subject, unknown, we may not know, but I think somewhere someone is suffering because of this.
Yeah, so I think with neurodiversity, um, each individual is unique, right? Just because you have five individuals with the same condition, they're not symptomatic in the same way. So each person could require different accommodations. I
Hmm.
think one thing that is really important within organizations is to be able to provide these accommodations, simple things like time management trainings, simple things like a manager structuring the work for a person who works very well with structure,
Hmm.
rather than sort of, giving them vague instructions and saying, go do this, right? So I have worked with people on the spectrum with autism, and these individuals that I have worked with thrive on structure. They can understand very complex emotional leadership skills as long as it is presented to them in a very logical and structured manner, right? So I think understanding that everyone has specific needs, having a special department that deals with these accommodations, that provides these accommodations for individuals right from when you are applying for the job. A lot of companies already do that. They will ask you, do you have any accommodation requirements? Do you have any special needs? So that they can make the interview process itself more inclusive. A lot of companies do that, and I think that there's work to be done in that area. um, Other things like having a quiet space where there's not sensory overload, sensory input, allowing them to
Hmm.
use noise canceling headphones to be able to focus and do their work, right? I think this has to be a co creation, a collaborative conversation with the individual on what helps them work best and what helps them thrive. And once that conversation is had, sort of arrive at mutual agreements of what their working structure will be like. Role clarity is so important in this, right? These are the things
Hmm.
that you are expected to do. Oftentimes, companies will not have role clarity. The managers themselves don't know what encompasses this role, right? Whose job is this? Who's this supposed to be delegated to? Right. So there's a lot that needs to happen on the process end for this structure to be created. And it's not just beneficial to neurodivergent employees, it is beneficial to everyone when you have more structure, clearer processes. None of us like to deal with one of the difficult things for us to deal with as human beings is uncertainty.
Hmm.
And we can have a whole conversation about this, but I believe that organizational politics is directly related to uncertainty within the organization, right? If you know I will do X and I will get Y, you will do X and you will get Y. But here there's no clarity on what you're going to get. So now you
True.
have to start playing social games, which people with very high social, awareness and that ability to play those politics are the ones that will rise in the organization because they are
So,
able to figure out these nuances.
yeah, Dr. Aditi, a follow-up question to you. In today's world, a manager's role, to me, is very critical, right? And the first layer managers, typically, I would say, employees experience the organizations through them, right? You may have a great corporate policies, but the manager that you are dealing with is not equipped, maybe with good intention, but is not enabled, is not experienced, is not skilled even to understand these issues, isn't it? And today's world is tough because they have project deliveries, and they are dealing with all kind of diversity, and these are all emerging fields. For them to catch up with that, understand and act upon is pretty tough. How do we enable, and there's a question here by Pratibha, I mean, is it safe for ND talent to disclose to the manager? Will it be more harmful to them? They don't know should we disclose or not. Sometimes if manager is not aware, they may say, oh, the person is not capable, rather than using their strength, because person may not be enabled to deal with it. So maybe that's a challenge. So how do we enable is a question. And maybe let me ask Dr. Balaji, who has worked in multiple corporates, how do we deal with enabling the managers? And Caesar, you're most welcome, anyone can jump in. How do we enable the managers? Because that seems to be a very critical link or a platform, or medium through which we can do right things for the employees. How do we enable them? There's so much for them to do. They're all human beings.
Yeah, that's a great question, Sanjeev. In fact, in the last decade, there has been a paradigm shift in the age group of managers as well. Earlier, gone
You're
are the
right.
days 20 years back when managers used to be 40 plus or 50 plus. Today we have those in 20s, mid 20s who are managers. So we need to understand they themselves could be a victim of impaired cognitive health or impaired mental health, sorry, emotional health. And so the best way to enable people to talk to managers is first create an awareness, self-awareness for managers. We have the manager
Hmm.
training programs just to identify in themselves first any issues of cognitive health and also help them identify the issues of cognitive health in their team. So, for example, just as we have a CPR, a cardiopulmonary resuscitation, which is the first aid, which is given the
Hmm.
chest compression when somebody falls with low pulse. Similarly, we
True.
have something called QPR for cognitive and mental health. What is QPR? QPR is question, persuade, and refer. The first thing is the manager should herself or himself question about what they are doing, the actions they are doing, then persuade themselves. Do I need to have a reference? Do I need to go to an EAP? Do I need a counselor? And if required, refer. So once the managers are well equipped, the QPR toolkit. In fact, there is a QPR institute in the United States, and they have branches across the world. And there's one similar QPR institute that has now come up in India as well, and they offer QPR training programs for managers, wherein managers
Wow.
are made perceptive to understand the impact they would create on their employees and also to understand, to detect early warning signs among employees. For example, employee may not be so forthcoming to go and tell her or his manager that I have an issue. So the best way is for managers to understand, is there any recent change in the behavior of the employee? Most of these managers need to have the connect with the people. Now, especially in a virtual world where the manager might be sitting somewhere in the United States and the employee may be in India and the peer may be somewhere in Japan. So exploring from west to east, the connect shouldn't be lost in the virtual world. So when there is a connect, that would really help in employees spilling out more or much better to the manager. And one important thing, Sanjeev, that we have commonly noticed is many times for want of time or just to make sure that a given target is not delayed further, some of the managers tend to ignore early warning signs and they say, yes, let's get along, let's get going, come on. They take it as a casual approach. Of course, once in a while, it is fine to ignore. For example, if somebody is depressed on a particular day, and if on that particular day her or his cognitive function is impaired, that doesn't mean that they have a cognitive health issue. It is perfectly okay to have an occasional cognitive health issue. It is perfectly normal to have an occasional depression or anxiety because of which the function would be impaired on that particular day. So the manager must be able to recognize that this is just today or yesterday, or it's just a past few days, which might have been because of some very really horrifying incident in a person's life. So that shouldn't be mistaken for a cognitive imbalance. Now, one easy way of assessing, for example, it depends on the role as well. For example, if someone is a manager in a manufacturing industry, in fact, I had noticed this in the first manufacturing industry where I worked about 25 years ago, wherein
Okay.
an employee who was really very good at his work, he was very prompt, And it so happened that he was in charge of fixing a particular screw using a robotic machine into to make a two-wheeler. That was his role. It was a monotonous, repetitive task. He had to do so many things in an 8-hour shift, of course, with breaks which are needed for the relaxation.
But
So
mm,
it so happened that after a few months, he started losing the grip, and the screws used to fall down from his hand, and he was not able to press the robotic machine at the exact time when he was supposed to, because of which there were a
mm,
lot of faults in the machines. So initially, the manager thought that okay, and instantly he had lost someone in the family. They thought it would be a grief reaction. So they thought a grief reaction is probably causing him to do this. And
mm,
he was counseled, the counsels were there, they were helping him. But this particular gentleman, he was very receptive to counseling, and he kept on telling, I really don't need a counselor. I feel I have some issue beyond that. He was right, actually, but the managers kept ignoring that. They said, oh, nothing, you have lost a family member. We understand your grief. We are empathetic. We are here to support you. We give you a
we
counselor.
assume we
So the
assume
manager
sometimes
kept on
things first.
insisting the role of counselor, but actually the issue was something else. But after a few days, in fact, perhaps after 2 months, in fact, for the first time, the gentleman visited the medical team, which was within the factory premise. And that was when we realized that is when we tested his muscle grip and the muscle tone and the muscle pull, all were less. We grade them on a grade of 1 to 5. 5 is best and 1 is worst. They were all 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5 in most of his muscles in the hands and the legs. So we thought there must be something beyond a grief reaction.
Mm,
Agreed, psychosomatic grief reactions could cause this or something beyond that. So we got him thoroughly investigated, and we soon realized that there was a small thrombus in his brain. There was a small clot in his brain, which in fact had caused his cognitive functions to get impaired. So what I was trying to tell is the managers shouldn't ignore repetitive failure to do certain thing as just grief reaction or a one-off reaction. They should pay attention to this and creating a more speak up environment because sometimes
mm,
people are hesitant to speak up. They feel they could be targeted. And also, especially in the South Asian scenario, in the Indian scenario and South Asian scenarios, people do feel that if they go and tell their managers about their cognitive health or emotional health, they would be rated low on performance or even they would lose their job. So
correct.
I
That's the
think
stigma we
that
are talking about,
that is
Dr.
the
Aditi.
stigma
You
we're
were just
talking
talking
about. So
about
that
stigma talk.
confidence needs to be given to them to make sure they speak up. So I think all these, and the most important and easiest way is creating a social hub. So when you create a hobby club or a social hub, say it could be hobby club for playing tennis or hobby club for singing, hobby club for dancing, hobby club for anything, multiple hobby clubs in organization. And these hobby club peers would be easily able to recognize early signs of cognitive decline than the
Wow.
manager or anyone, and they can be encouraged to speak up or support this person or encourage the person to go and speak to the manager. I think these are some simple ways of reaching out to managers where they can talk about cognitive health.
That's a great explanation, and thanks for sharing the story because that will make it real for us. You know what can go. Caesar, coming to you, and I think Dr. Balaji, like you are mentioning this QPR training. I mean, I heard there's a mental health first aider training, for example, some organizations are doing for the managers because unless they know, how would they even observe? And what Angela wrote, that's my favorite as well. Something like QPR, we can say look, listen, and link, because sometimes you should not solve the problem yourself if you're not capable, but link them to the right resources like the EAP services or a counselor, because don't try to solve the issue yourself if you're not equipped to do that, right? Caesar, in your experience, any best practice you want to share in addition to what Dr. Balaji has said about enabling the managers, because that's a very critical link.
Yeah, I think that I would agree, with anthropology in terms of the training element, and what should be included as part of the training is making sure that we develop this quality of empathy in managers, right? And sometimes people misunderstand what the word actually means. So, in the emotional spectrum, on the lower part of the spectrum, you've got pity. When you feel sorry for someone, but you are kind of emotionally detached, from that person's situation. Then you've got sympathy, in which now you acknowledge the suffering, and you express your concern, but you're still emotionally detached from the situation and the person. The next level is empathy, in which now you understand the person's perspective, situation, and now you have an emotional investment in this situation. So now you feel the other person's anxiety, you feel their angst, you feel their disappointment, you feel the concern, as if those emotions were yours, right? But then there's a higher level emotion, which is compassion, and some people don't really understand what compassion means, but it's very simple. Compassion is empathy plus
Action.
action. So I
Correct.
feel what you're feeling, I understand what you're going through, and I want to do something about it, right? So that's what makes compassion, the action element to it. So if we can train our managers not only to be more empathetic, but to be compassionate, that
Wow.
will actually prompt immediate action. And basically you can have a compassionate exchange with someone in 5 minutes. Someone comes to you and they express a particular challenge, a particular concern. You actively listen to this person, you connect with what they're saying to you, and then you acknowledge those feelings, yeah, and then immediately say, what can I do to support you, what can I do to help? And so if we can promote the qualities of empathy and compassion in managers, I can guarantee you that the level of burnout in the world will actually decrease. Right now, I think the latest stat is that in last year, 44% of the global workforce have experienced burnout symptoms. And what's interesting is that that number can be significantly reduced through manager intervention, right? Because the major reason for the increase in burnout has been uh, the lack of training and the lack of preparation from the manager. That's been one of the biggest influences in the experience of burnout in people. So again, empathy and compassion training should be absolutely imperative.
I just want to add to this, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Um, so going back to what Dr. Balaji said, which was very insightful with the self-awareness training for managers, I think this is where presence and mindfulness is also really important. Managers are humans, and when you are disconnected from your own inner experiences, you are not able to observe or be compassionate or pay attention to anybody else's. So I think that begins with the
Self.
managers themselves acknowledging and modeling, uh, you know, good practices, good uh, behaviors in terms of well-being, in terms of rest, in terms of, uh, managing their and regulating their emotions, and so on and so forth. And the managers themselves don't have these tools, right? When you're disconnected from yourself, how are you going to connect with somebody else to know that they're going through something? I'll give you a simple example, right?
Please.
There are certain things that we know very inherently in our bodies. Okay, for example, if someone's coming too close to you, they're invading your personal space, immediately your body gives a reaction and says, okay, that feels uncomfortable. You recognize that feeling, right? So you pay attention and maybe you step back a little bit. This is something that everybody does, which is just so natural for us. But what we don't do is, if something inside is saying, I have chest pain, or my back is hurting for the last 2 weeks, right? I've been having headaches. We just say, oh, okay, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. I'm going to drink some water. I'm going to just continue working. We ignore the signs from within us that's telling us something's not okay. Somebody speaks
Mhm.
very rudely to you. Maybe the senior manager speaks very harshly to them. Um, they're not able to recognize. They say, okay, I'm going to just let this go. Okay, what can I do? There's nothing I can do. Just move on. But what they're doing is they're carrying all of this within themselves. And that is manifesting in the way they manage their people as well. So I would say we have to first recognize the humanity of the leaders and managers who have their own pressures they're coming with, help them manage their stress, help them create psychological safety within their peers for themselves, because that is not going to get passed down if they don't have it for themselves,
So we
right? It's
talk about it, Dr. Aditi, as you very rightly mentioned, and I think it's a great discussion. about what can, as an organization, we can do through the managers. It's a great discussion. And we talk about earlier IQ and then EQ. Today we talk about DQ, decency quotient, that in an organization we must create a high decency quotient. You can be firm, you can be demanding, you can be asking for high performance, but you need to stay decent in the organization, right? So it's a decency quotient the managers need to display, right? Besides their EQ and IQ. So exactly, it's a great point you're mentioning. Thank you. All right, so let's change gears a little bit. And Caesar, let me check with you. Do you think cognitive wellness empirically, and anyone can comment on, has anything to do with gender? I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking this. It's a theoretical question. Do you think there's some connection to, oh, men are likely to face it more than women, or it is agnostic of gender? I mean, it's just a theoretical question. I wanted to check.
Yeah, I haven't come across research, for or against, in terms of gender, but I think that all, as human beings, if we just focus on the really five key things that we need to focus, whether we're a man or a woman, we can all improve our cognitive, well-being. And the five things are, and I can tell you right now that 90% of the
Please.
population are not doing the basic things when it comes to these five aspects of our well-being. So I think that Dr. Balaji mentioned it already. Sleep being the primary one, quality nutrition, incorporating movement, socializing, and then managing stress. If we focus on those five areas, and if we do that, the basic things in those five areas of our lifestyle and our work style, whether you're a man or you're a woman, you'll be able to improve your cognitive well-being. There might be differences, perhaps, depending on not just age, but perhaps even, gender or, cultural background, ethnicity, where you are, you might be in the world. But if you do those five basic things right, then most likely you shouldn't be concerned about any other factors.
So which of these five, it looks very simple. Thank you for giving just a very crisp key to success, as we say, or, secret sauce, that sleep, nutrition, movement, socializing, and stress management. Which you think of these five are most difficult in your experience when you deal with so many hundreds and thousands of employees or the organizations, when you are helping them in the well-being? Which of these five is most difficult to manage?
Yeah. So it's ironic because it's not difficult, but the one that people are struggling most with is basically sleep. I would invite participants of this webinar to, after the session, if they can, if you Google why am I, most likely, out of the top 10 searches, 70% of the search results will be, why am I so tired? Why am I so tired all the time? And why am I so hungry all the time, which is connected to sleep deprivation, by the way. So there, sleep deprivation is a massive global issue, which actually has an impact on our ability to, exercise. It has an impact, again, in our nutritional choices. It has an impact in the way we interact with people. It has an impact in our stress as well. So even though, the advice is really straightforward, we need 7 to 9 hours of sleep, every day. We need to make sure that we are in bed, the majority of us at least, by 10 p.m. I mean, there's people that can go to bed a little later or a little earlier. That's depending on genetic factors, but making sure that we're getting, deep quality sleep. It's simple, but a lot of people are not getting restful sleep because they're engaging in unhealthy practices, like, basically interacting with their devices late in the evening, or not managing stress and anxiety appropriately so that they can properly, they get some proper rest. And we can spend, believe me, 3 days talking about how to improve the quality of our sleep. But just the basic, simple things, in terms of improving the quality of the sleep, will make a massive difference. But I think that, again, if we start with the sleep element of the five, we will be able to, accomplish
Wow.
greater things in life. Yeah.
So it appears so simple, but still you're saying that's what we are most struggling with. Mostly, Dr. Aditi, I think you have some something to share.
Yes. So I think two things. One is that life stages can have an impact on um, the level of cognitive wellness. It can vary over life stages. We were talking about menopause the other day. Women in that life stage have a lot of hormonal
Mm,
changes and things that affect, right? So, for example, there's research to show that a drop in estrogen levels results in a drop in dopamine levels as well, right? That can have effects on your, mood as well as on your physical movement and so on and so forth. The medical aspect, I'm sure Dr. Balaji can talk to more specifically. That is one aspect. The second aspect is socially, for especially for women in India. We are talking about, don't multitask, don't do this and don't do that, and get your sleep and get your rest. However, for the majority of women in this country, there are not enough social systems in place for them to afford the luxury of time, of sleep, you know. Um, we glorify a lot of hard work and sacrifice from women.
correct.
And so this definitely affects their ability to wake up the next morning fresh as a flower and say, okay, come on, I'm going to be creative today. So
And
I think
especially
we need
young
to
mothers,
do
Dr. Aditi, I would add, especially young mothers. And I've some in the family, some young mothers, and I can see they're struggling so much with a basic thing like sleep, because they have to align their sleep cycle with when the baby is up, when the baby is sleeping, isn't it? So it
young
becomes
mothers,
even much
college
more.
students, right? College students who are being pressured into working really, really hard. They, have to study at night, and sometimes at the same time, they're being pressured to get married. So there's also a second level of the thing that keeps them up.
Hmm,
I've worked with, thousands of women and female leaders as well. And I can tell you there are so many social and cultural aspects that can feed into their ability to choose to live a healthier lifestyle.
right. So, Doctor, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm loving this discussion and learning so much basic things that we are missing out in life and at the workplace that can fix, some of the. Dr. Balaji, you had a comment. You wanted to make a comment here?
Yeah, that's right. So, on the role of gender in cognitive, there is this interesting study which was done some time back by ICMR,
I see.
Indian Council of Medical Research.
But
So the
yes.
study was done in two different groups. The first group is a highly educated and socially advanced group, and the second group was lesser educational level and less socially advanced group. The comparison
Okay.
in cognitive functions between these two groups was made over a period of 1 year. They found that
Okay.
similar in the highly educated and sociable group, where there is sharing of work in the house, especially the nuclear families these days, with the parents staying away from the children or the spouse. The where the spouse shares, the both of them share the workload equally in the kitchen, in taking care of children, in all their personal responsibilities, as well as the outside work. There's no impact of there's no impact of gender on cognitive function. However, in the other group, where the educational levels and the social levels are not so advanced, they are pretty backward, they found that the chances of worsening of cognitive function is 3 times higher in women than in men for various reasons. Number one, given the less awareness, and also as Aditi earlier mentioned, the multifaceted role of these women, from being a
Mhm.
good mother, daughter-in-law, spouse, and so many things in a joint family or even in nuclear families, multifaceted role,
Caregiving
and
load.
typical attitude of assigning most of the or 90% of the household role to a woman in the less socially developed societies. That really puts a lot of multitasking pressure on these women, causing them to be a victim for cognitive dysfunction, especially after the age of 50. So that's one of the gender studies that have been done.
Wow, that's very insightful. That's very insightful. And when you think and when we think of it, when we are talking, I was imagining, I mean, it is so, so true. And you're right, the caregiving load on women, especially in India, that we know. I mean, it must be a global phenomenon, but in India, definitely is there, is huge, because of which, they sometimes they sacrifice, I mean, on their career, on the potential that they have, and and it leads to the cognitive, wellness issues as well, as you're saying. So that's very, very insightful. Caesar, coming to you, uh, let's change gears. Does technology, I mean, we can't have any discussion nowadays if we don't talk about technology, isn't it? Because that is so much in our life, in and out. So, what role technology plays, and hear me out, both in triggering the cognitive wellness issues, as you're saying, digital detoxing is needed because every time you get a trigger from your smartphone, right, your attention goes away, right? It distracts you. But are there some technology tools, apps which will help you to maintain your, you know, uh, mental, I mean, cognitive well-being? And I was telling Aditi the other day that my dad, who was a master's in psychology and social work, I lost him 3 years back. He, during his, when he was 85 or 86, he used to play Scrabble on iPad against a computer, and he'll play as many as 20 games in a day. I said, Papa, that's too much. He said, I know, if I don't sharpen my brain, I may get Alzheimer. So he was quite aware of that, and he went overboard. He was playing maybe 20 games in a day. But just to say, I mean, your views on how can technology play a role in helping promote the cognitive wellness, or where it is causing it. I mean, both ways.
I think technology is actually impairing cognitive wellness more than it's helping. So the first thing that
Okay.
comes to mind is if we again want to improve our cognitive well-being. I know there's always an app for everything, right? But I think this is an instance in which technology has certain limitations. Yes, of course, we can use apps that can help us with guided meditations, and we can use
Mhm.
apps to for cognitive training. But in reality, we should perhaps not use technology as much to improve cognitive well-being, and we can engage in other activities that do not involve technology. So for instance, playing a musical instrument or having some kind of hobby that you practice in a mindful kind of way. So
Yeah.
any kind of activity or hobby or something that you like that you practice in a mindful kind of way will actually help you in that regard. So for instance, in my particular case, I like to play the guitar, and I like to play the bass guitar. And I used to actually have a limiting belief that I couldn't play lead guitar, which is when you play a sequence of notes as opposed to chords. And a couple of years ago, I started actually not a couple of years ago, since COVID. When COVID happened, I decided to buy a bass guitar, just a four-string instrument, and that forces you to play, notes in sequence. So just being able to sit down, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and have to learn how to mindfully play a particular melody following a particular sequence of notes, I cannot think of anything more mindful than that. Okay, and that helps me to improve my memory, helps me to improve my learning and adapting and all of the different aspects of the cognitive function as well. So my personal recommendation would be to try to find something outside of technology
Real,
that
real,
you can
something
it's
real
a
physical.
real life experience, right? But again, I'm totally for, if you want to, for instance, try meditation and you need some guidance, yeah, you can download these apps that can help you with guided meditations and stuff like that. But I would limit the technology to that particular use. Otherwise, just choose something that doesn't involve technology, something that you really, really enjoy, and practice it in a mindful way,
All right. Any additional comment, Aditi and Balaji? Do you agree with that, or you think technology?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say partially. I
Okay, go
think
ahead. What's
that
your different view?
I think that when you think about technology, social media, for example, mindless scrolling, doom scrolling, reading the news, these are things that are distractions. These are not necessarily mindful activities. However, when I look at some of the young people in uh, art, in the field of art, I work with some artists as well. They create beautiful digital art. They're creating mandalas using, drawing tablets and whatnot. That is also technology. And I think technology can be very beneficial for neurodivergent individuals as well, in terms
Mhm.
of helping them set reminders, manage their time, block their days off into chunks, and so on. So I think it's really about what kind of technology. I wouldn't say all technology is terrible for you, but I would say that
But be mindful. But be mindful. Be
the
mindful
way
about
in
it.
which we typically use it, that's more harmful than helpful for sure, because it's a quick hit of something exciting, something new, right? You're bored of the news, you go to Bollywood gossip, or you go and look at what are the latest cricket scores, or you're flipping from one thing to another so quickly. Our human brains are not meant, for example, if you're on Twitter, our human brains are not meant to receive and perceive and process the thoughts of millions of people in bite-sized chunks in a period of 1 or 2 hours a day.
And people are scrolling. I see people are scrolling the reels just like mindlessly, right? And you don't know when 2 hours go by. And there's a study, I mean, which is very common. If you ask anyone, how many times do you look at your phone in a day on an average? Anyone, any guesses here? How many times typically on an average, someone looks at the smartphone? I mean, I'm assuming many of us have it, and it is in hundreds, right? I think some 150, 200, 300 times. And when you look at your screen time, you go to denial. No, it can't be me. I was not there for 5 hours. Where were I? Was not at all. It's a denial mode. But there are apps in the systems, the tracking, that you were there for 5 hours on an average. And you say, it can't be true. I was not on phone for 5 hours. So I think if you are monitoring, be mindful about it, can be a very, very helpful. Now, Dr. Balaji, one question to you. Uh, how do you go about it if, as an individual, as an employee, or as an individual, I feel I'm having some issue, right? My cognitive abilities are going down. Maybe I'm not able to pay attention as much as I was to do earlier. I play piano, or I'm not able to pick up notes the way I used to play earlier. It takes me more longer time to remember certain notes, right? I mean, or chords. Then where should one go? Is it to a counselor, to a medical doctor? What can one do about it? Whom to approach?
Yeah, that's a good question. But before that, I just want to add another point on the previous one about technology. While I completely agree with Caesar and Aditi about technology, there is now a more advanced one called as the robotic assisted technology for cognitive training, wherein certain virtual scenarios are given on a robotic machine, humanoid machine, and this is found to be very effective in cognitive training. This is based on the principle what we learned in our nursery and primary schools, where the teachers asked us to play role models or specific roles, and we were asked to interact, or we were asked to show a reaction for the specific roles. And so
Mhm.
it goes back to the school level of training. And this has been found, but I completely agree. Only when used in moderation, it is useful. Otherwise, that itself could be a bait. Now, coming back to your current question, where should one go if they feel this? The first
Yeah.
and the foremost, once they have the self awareness, that's a big success, which means that they know that they need help. There could be two ways to go. One is approach someone who is closest to them. It may not be their doctor, it may not be a family member, it could be a friend. Or if
Mm.
case they, I think from what we read from research studies, people with a lot of friend circle, they invariably have a better cognitive function. So socialization is most important thing in cognitive function. So approaching a trusted friend would be the first place to start with. But in case someone doesn't have that trusted friend, they don't know where to start, they could simply just go to their family physician and start explaining the facts that they have these deficits in their motor functions or sensory functions over the past few months or so, because that would help in initial analysis of a risk assessment. Because the first step is we need to analyze, where is this coming from? Is it a cognitive impairment? Is it a grief reaction? Is it an emotional imbalance? Or is it some really organic problem in the body which is causing this cognitive impairment? So this risk assessment needs to be done. So I think that way the family physician can help, and the family physician can then guide to a counselor if required. If he feels it's more of not an organic problem, it's not something to do with the human body, it's more of emotional health. It could be referred to a counselor. But on investigations, they find that there is a cognitive issue. Then it requires a more deep dive to understand the true history of this deeper questionnaire. Now, that is one way of approaching. The other way is the self-awareness questionnaires that is available. It could be a PHQ-2 questionnaire or PHQ-9 questionnaire. There are so many questionnaires available on Google, and these are very trusted ones from renowned institutes, used internationally and time tested, tested time and again. So one could just go into these questionnaires and they could try to assess for themselves, where do I need to go next? These questionnaires will then guide them. Yes, you now need to go to your doctor. You now need to go to a counselor. You now need to go speak to your friend. You now need to speak to someone whom you know very well. So that would be initial guidance, a triage. A triage is formed, wherein there would be initial guidance on where to go. And from there, the next steps would flow through.
So this is, are you saying, and I was not aware, let me admit, this PHQ-9, you're saying there's a self-assessment that will guide us. Should we go to a doctor? Should we go to a counselor? Are you saying that?
That's right. That would really help.
Wow.
PHQ-9 is an elaborate version. It's a personal health questionnaire. And this has been time tested across multiple countries. And this is universally accepted. Initially, it started as a depression questionnaire. They started it as a questionnaire to test depression. But now they rely on something beyond depression. It can help in even assessing early cognitive impairment, not just depression.
Hmm. All right. So I'm loving this discussion, but I have some announcements to make before we wrap up. And we never realize we are close to now time. We have a few minutes left. So with your permission, there are a couple of announcements we need to make. So Vijaya, if you can put up the screen, then we'll go through that. And we'll take some question and some concluding conversation in just a minute. So Vijaya, if you're there, then can you put up the screen? Thank you. So one is that this is, of course, we are in the panel discussion. And by the way, we have this HR Buzz. It's a podcast that we create out of every event that we do. So this is in the link my team will share, we have created a well-being calendar. And this is a free of cost that will share with everyone. You know what happens? Sometimes when in the HR role, you need to create some awareness. It is best if you are align those discussions and initiatives around some special days. For example, today we are talking about mental health at the workplace. I mean, we carefully chosen it is around World Mental Health Day because it makes more sense, right? You'll get more attraction right around this. So that's why what we have done, we have created a calendar, well-being calendar, and some programs that we could do around those days. And there's a link which is there in the chat. If you want, you can download that, and it will help you organize well-being activities in your organization around special days, right? So that is something the team has done, and we have identified these two, whether it's a physical health well-being or financial well-being, social well-being, etc. So we have aligned it around that. So that is one resource I wanted to share with all of you. Second is, as an organization around Mental Health Day, we have certain offerings. The link is there in the chat, where you could leverage certain programs that we do, learning programs mostly. This could be on different topics. We have more than 50 topics, but you could pick up and choose from what your need is. But we also do other engagement activities like mental health through melody. People are becoming getting very creative about how should you educate. So there's a lot of mental health education and sensitization happening through art, through melody, and through food, right? So there's a connection of food and body and the mental health side. There's a huge connection. So I think these are some resources we wanted to share with you. If we move on, So what we have done is similar session the way we are doing. We have as by now about 30 such sessions. It could be on the different topics on well-being. It could be around DEI. It could be around core HR subject, and some great experts like we have today. They are there on different topics. What I want is you to, I'll take a minute, scan this and subscribe to this channel. I can tell you there'll be some useful resources, about 30 such different topics which are recorded and they are available on our YouTube. So I want you to, if you want, to scan this QR code, and that will take you to our YouTube site. And even this session will get uploaded in a couple of days at our site, right? But you can go through different topics on DI wellness, uh, primarily, and a lot of topics on core HR, right? So you can leverage that as well. And then all the sessions that we have created, we are catching up the game, right? So we said, oh, youngsters, they like the new generation, they like podcasts versus the YouTube. They don't want to watch YouTube. And I was talking to a Gen Z, they said, we don't watch YouTube, we listen to YouTube. So they are more in listening mode. So we have created podcast called HR Buzz, and you can scan. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, different channels. So you can, if you want, scan this code, which will take you to our channel on HR Buzz. And we are in the process of uploading all our, conversations into our podcast. So already 11 of them are there. But by the another month, you'll have 30 of those sessions on the podcast. So these are, I think, great knowledge, great conversation through great experts in the industry that you can, benefit from. So these are a few announcements we wanted to make. And then there'll be a quick poll the team will post. You will see it on the screen. I want you to very give a very candid feedback. How did you like this conversation? Because three experts have really spent their personal time on educating us, removing some of the myths and stereotypes that we have, uh, in terms of the issues that we have and what we can do and not do around this. So I think that's what it is. Now, concluding, uh, I would ask one question, maybe last question from you, that what would be your one advice to, three people, the employees, the managers, and the business heads, and to the family members, because family is a part of the whole ecosystem, because we bring a lot of issues because of the family and we take issues to the family. It's an integrated world, right? So if I have to take Caesar, you, what will be your one final advice? You have shared a lot of great insights. One advice, very quick, to employees in terms of improving and maintaining our cognitive health. What would that be?
So two things. Number one, I've mentioned this already. If you focus on those five areas, sleep, movement, nutrition, social connection, and stress
Yes.
management, you're halfway there. If you do the basic things right in those five areas, you should be fine. Okay, that's comment number one. And comment number two, and this is for employers or people in charge of or people in HR positions, change the focus from fixing the person to fixing the issues that are creating the stress and the anxiety in the first place. So in other words, make sure that you are conducting psychosocial risk management in your business. And I would pay attention to standards like ISO 45003 that will actually help to deal with the organizational issues that are creating the unnecessary stress and unnecessary environment. Unfortunately, nowadays, companies, they try to fix the issue, the employee issue, by just offering employee benefits. These employee benefits are disjointed, they're not really measuring the impact when you should be focusing primarily on the organizational issues. So pay attention to standards like ISO 45003. And I just dropped in the chat as well I think you've mentioned it already, a free ebook that I've got for all of you on how to get started with workplace well-being, and that'll give you an idea of of what you should do in order to not only to improve cognitive well-being, but to improve mental well-being and all the other dimensions of mental well-being that will improve the life and work experiences of workers around the world.
Thank you very much, Aditi. one message to the families. I mean, whatever you want to add, but I wanted to check the family element. What is one message, that as a family we can do to help all of us, because that is an impact at the workplace also.
I would say this is true for all of these levels that you've asked me:
Mhm.
employees, organizations, managers, and families. Be curious,
Be
right?
curious. Okay.
Be curious.
Mm.
Don't make assumptions about what another person might be experiencing. Be curious, be non judgmental, and provide them with a space that they can share how they're feeling. This is really important. For families in particular, I think we have this idea in our culture that if something's wrong, going on in your family, don't share it outside, right? What happens inside stays inside. But it's really, really essential right from childhood that people have a safe space outside of their families to talk about something that might be disturbing them, that might be bothering them. A small example is I have a 13-year-old son, and he was telling me the other day how him and his friends were talking about all of the weird things their moms do, even though they are now 13, right? And I said, okay, so this is an improvement. I'm really happy to see this happening because when I was
Mm.
growing up, we never talked about things our parents were doing that were annoying or that bothered us, or we were not allowed to speak outside about what was happening inside the household.
So
So I think
creating
this is important.
psychologically safe environment and open up and be curious. That's a great advice.
Yeah.
Balaji, anything you want to just sum up by giving one word advice to maybe any of the category, to employee, to managers, or to the families?
Yeah, employees, managers, families, all put together, one single sentence: lead a fuller life. When I say fuller
Wow,
life, it
that's a
encompasses,
mission.
yeah, it encompasses physical, social, emotional, cognitive, financial, spiritual health, all it encompass. Lead a fuller life, let others lead a fuller life, and support our employees to lead a fuller life. That's it.
All right. So I think I really enjoyed. I learned so much during this session. Thank you so much. We are over by a couple of minutes. Apologies for that. We try to stick to the time, but I did not want to stop some beautiful wisdom coming, flowing through these three experts today. So this session will be recorded and be available at our YouTube channel and our podcast. But let me thank Sushil, for suggesting this topic, first of all, and helping with the initial research on this. So thank you so much. And Aditi, Balaji, and Caesar, I can't thank you enough for removing some myths and making it simple for us, because this can be a complex topic, but the way you explained with examples and simplicity was amazing. And I learned a lot of things here. And I'm going to sleep enough from now onwards. So this is one mantra I'm taking, because if you sleep well, then I think rest of things will be okay. So I'm going to take enough sleep, definitely. So with that, and audience, you are amazing. Such a beautiful conversation was going on in the chat, and some very genuine questions that were asked. A very matured crowd here, and so thank you very much for contributing. So with that, let's hope that will create great, work environment. That's a responsibility all of us have, not only at the workplace, in the families and the community, and support each other. You never know. And I think look, listen, and link. Basically, look for the symptoms. Anyone who is suffering within our teams, community, family, and listen without condition, without judgment, and linking them to the right resources. If these three things we do, I think we'll have a better world and a safer place for all of us to stay in. And this world will be much more beautiful than what it is today. And we lead Dr. Balaji, as you're saying, leading full life. Life is short. We should make best out of it. So with that, namaskar, and thank you so much, everyone, and stay safe. We'll close the session now
Thank
with your
you.
permission.
Thanks, everyone. Have
Thank
a
you for
wonderful
having
day.
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.